Latest football news, engaging debates,
and fascinating opinions.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George. How are you doing? I hope you had a good week. It's been absolutely beautiful. I'm blue skies, lockdowns easing, and football has been, going absolutely bonkers and madness and all sorts, which has really taken over our lives this week. But before we talk about that, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk _ Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk. Make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel because we've got a brand new series that has launched yesterday called Fan Talk, where I talk to a fan from a club. We talk about their first memories, what's happened in the time of supporting the club and this season. So you better check that out because it's a very good episode, I'd say. And who am I joined by this week? Well, I'm joined by a resident It's Town fan, co-host, all that. It is Dan. Dan, how are you doing this week?
I'm all right. As you said, it's been a bit of a bonkers week, hasn't it? In the football world, lots to talk about, which is good for our show, isn't it? So, yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been a very weird week. Well, what is coming up in today's show? Well, we're going to be talking about the Super League. Yes, the Super League. Oh, gosh, it has dominated our lives. It only happened for about 48 hours, but it felt like it was happening for a month, how long it had been going on for. Ipswich Town, we'll be talking about them as well. The Charlton game and what happened on Tuesday night versus Northampton Town. Is a chance. Don't listen. It's not great. And we'll be talking about Jose Mourinho and Spurs. Yes, Jose Mourinho and Spurs. What could be going on there? Not too sure, but we'll find out later on the show. So we'll be back after a short little break to talk about the Super League. Oh no.
Stay up to date with the latest footy news.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on iRadio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan. As always, now, before we move on, talking about the most, I think, controversial news of this week, the Super League, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk _ Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk. And make sure to hello to our YouTube channel and subscribe on that because we have a brand new series come out called Fan Talk and you won't want to miss it because it is a very good episode, I have to say. Myself, as always. Well, then, now we've been talking about it. We've been sort of mentioning, skipping around the elephant in the room, the Super League. So you might be wondering, what is this? Well, it all started on Sunday afternoon, I want to say. I don't know when it started because I was at work on Sunday, so I have no clue when it started. I only found out about this from about 11
Well, it was
o'clock.
it was like at 11 o'clock at night, wasn't it? It was stupid time.
Yeah, very stupid time. Well, there was rumours circling around apparently this new Super League, which was going to involve the big six of the Premier League: Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United and Spurs. They had apparently signed up for it, with joining Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Real Madrid, AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juventus. Apparently it was all going to be rosing at, and the clubs confirmed at, I think, was it like 11:30 at night? A very weird time. I think everybody had gone to bed that they were going to be joining this. So you might be wondering, what is this Super League? Well, it was going to be a brand new midweek competition where all the leading European clubs, well, which sounds quite familiar, were going to be competing against each other in another familiar European competition, something called the Champions League. But this is a little bit different. All the 12 clubs that are joining would be founding members, so they could not be relegated from this league. Right? That's a little bit weird. Well, what makes it even more weird is that each year they would earn £350 million across the course of 10 years, meaning they would get 3.5 billion in that time. So meaning this league was actually probably a closed shop for the rich to get richer. But the decision didn't really go down too well with the fans, but we'll mention that. But it was going to have massive consequences on the whole football world, especially over here in the UK, with the whole pyramid possibly getting affected with teams in League One, League Two, National League and grassroots football, because the money from the big six, which is about £400 million, would not filter down through the system. So this news was met by very much uproar and negativity from pundits, especially Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, but from the fans of the club who've been involved in the competition and fans are not. It was absolutely uproar. But Dan, these last few days, we have seen the whole football community come together to stop this Super League from happening. Sunday night when it was announced, there was a lot of backlash on Twitter. Monday, there's even more backlash from players, managers, and and on social media as well. I think Lee's wearing the shirts in their training for the Liverpool game. Earn it, football is for the fans. And there's a protest outside Ellen Road as well. And also there's a massive protest outside Stamford Bridge, which they wouldn't let the team bus go through for Chelsea to play their game against Brighton, needing Petacek to come out and try and diffuse the situation. But no, clubs have got cold feet in the end. Chelsea, Man City were looking to pull out, and at 9:23 p.m, Man City became the first club to withdraw from this, and at 10:55, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United, and Spurs all withdrew from the Super League. So the Super League, dead and buried. We can now breathe a little bit. But Dan, what a crazy few days for football fans in this country and around the world, and for football fans involved in this, the clubs involved, and for fans not. It was a manic time, like craziness.
It was, yeah, it was absolutely crazy. Obviously, when the news got released, I think there was kind of murmurings the day, wasn't there? TalkSport and Sky and others were kind of saying that this could happen, sooner rather than later. But I think, first of all, to come out at 11 o'clock at night while most of England and most of Europe are asleep and the rest of the world are awake, I think that's the first, pointless thing that they did. Obviously it was a confusing night in the football world, wasn't it? I think my first reaction to it was, this can't be real, an absolute utter nonsense. I think the first thing I thought was how these owners and the people creating this, the complete disregard to the history of English football, the fans of English football. I don't support a team in the top six, but you do, and I was feeling sorry for people like you who, the clubs had betrayed them, haven't they? It's utter greed, it's pathetic, really, isn't it? To just completely turn your back on the Premier League and the Champions League, which I guess you could argue the Premier League was made out of kind of the same thing back in '92 with Sky and stuff. But it's worked. It's been a success. What happened back then? Maybe you could say these leading companies are corrupt, but this is good. This is to another level, isn't it? This is to an absolute another level. And I think fans, mainly of the big six, but I think fans of everywhere around the country were legitimately worried about where the future of football would go. I don't think it'd be in a good way, would it? The top six going into not even the top six, the big six going into a separate league. Who would have known if they would have been kicked out of the Premier League or not? If they weren't, then there would have been games midweek. You would have had a Premier League squad and a Super League squad. They probably wouldn't have been allowed to play in the Champions League anymore. All the memories Liverpool fans, for example, have had in European leagues, recently and before as well. Manchester United as well, all the fantastic times they've had in the European leagues, just completely disregarded. So I think the fans, it really affected the fans, and you could see that with the protests afterwards. So yeah, really tough time in these 2 days. I felt sorry for the players as well, because I don't think Lee's players really wanted to play in this, and they didn't even get told about it, did they? Which is absolutely disgusting. And these owners just doing this for money. That's all it is about. Just money. And it was just horrible to see. But thankfully, it's got resolved now.
Yeah, it was horrible to see. I think the players were on, but I think the Liverpool players were on, but they didn't get warning until it was even announced. I think about a few minutes beforehand, and then they've got to play a game, and they're sort of they can't say anything, but everybody's asking questions. It's quite tough. But no, luckily this hasn't happened, because if it did, we'd be talking about the whole pyramid of football, which took 100 years to build, just disregarded and thrown in the bin and torn up, and it would have torn up a lot of clubs. Really, we're seeing at the moment a lot of clubs with this money still filtering down. They are struggling with that money still filtering down, but without that, it would be, I don't know, nuclear. Really, I think what has been described in the sort of the meetings that Premier League clubs were having without the big six, which was kind of controversial anyway, not having the meeting out of them. About it wasn't civil war; it was nuclear war, which is quite concerning. But thankfully, it has sort of now, well, not died down, but thankfully we've got to a good resolve here. But the Super League is now over, but according to the president, Florentino Perez, which is the chairman of Real Madrid, it is not dead. Well, unfortunately, Real Madrid and Barcelona, and I think Juventus haven't left just yet, but even they're saying it's over. But one man's still saying it is. Not very good, is it? But I think the next question is now, Dan, is the Premier League. What are they going to do now about the Big Six? There's sort of a lot of the 14 other clubs are divided on what should happen to them. Should they be punished in points deduction for this season or next? That's something that's been discussed. Maybe being fined. That's something that's been discussed as well. But we're not really too sure what's going to happen there. But does there need to be possibly a restructure in how the Premier League works and the power these owners have? Because these Big Six here have literally just gone off on their own here. They haven't, I think Steve Parish on, but they haven't considered anybody else. They've gone off and done this on their own. Nothing has, they've gone and done this. Does the power weight need to be looked at here? Because you've got in Germany here, was it like 51% of each club is owned by the fans? Does that something that needs to be looked up over here, or possibly an independent regulator keeping these clubs in check? Because they've got so much power. This could easily happen again, and it could be next time. It could be even worse. They could literally just leave and boycott, because that was something that was going to possibly happen if they got blocked from leaving to this European Super League.
Yeah, I think something definitely needs to happen like that. I think this has shown, how much power these Big Six clubs have, and it's quite worrying, to be honest, to see it, especially as teams like Tottenham and Arsenal, who have had a hard time in the last few years. Leicester have finished pretty much above them. Tottenham, for example, when was the last time they won a major trophy?
2008.
Why are they automatically in? Okay, but the Premier League or European Championship, I think they won the first division in 1961. Yeah. Ipswich won it more, they won it in 62. So they've won it more recently than them. What gives them the right to be in it is, I think, the arrogance of these Big Six clubs has really been what has annoyed me, that they can just, go into the league without any competition as well. No relegations at all. Takes away all the premise of English football. So I think punishments need to come in. I think we do need to look at how football in England is structured and how much power owners have. Because, this has shown that these owners are they're not there for the club or the fans, or they don't care about, the history of these clubs. Outside Liverpool, there's a statue of Shankly, who's, a massive figure in Liverpool history, just completely disregarded for this. So I think you said independent regulators or something similar to that. Well, I think that would be a good idea. I don't think that would solve it completely, but I think that would be a good step in the right direction. We've seen some of these owners leaving already. I think because of pressure from fans, they're not gonna be involved in that because of what they've done. Absolute bottle jobs. I think that these people are that have left. Ed Woodward, for example. I think it really needs to be looked into. I also think these teams should get a punishment. I don't think it will be a points deduction or anything like that, but I'd like it to be. I think fines and points deductions is what I'd like it to be, but I don't think that'll happen. You've seen people saying, what about fans and things like that? But I get it. I get that fans could be punished for that. But were people saying that for Portsmouth, when they went into administration, got relegated to League Two. Wigan, Bolton, Bury, who aren't even a club anymore. What are their fans thinking? When all this money that went into the Super League, we're talking billions of pounds and euros here. Couldn't any of that gone into Bury to save that club? A club with a history, that with a community. Could none of that money that the Big Six created, helped to keep them afloat? So yeah, I guess the fans of them clubs will probably not be happy with the points deduction, but I think that's where we need to take, because these owners have, they signed up for something that was going to ruin English football.
Yeah.
So I think the punishments should be severe. I think, owners need to be looked into and things need to be done about this, because, as you said, this could all happen again, couldn't it? And it could be worse. If there's no punishment there, what's going to stop them from doing this again?
Yeah,
it's going to happen in the future.
That is an interesting point about Bury, because you have to remember, I think, isn't Bury one of the oldest football clubs in history? It is the oldest ever. They're still. I think you said that the club still exists, but it doesn't technically, realistically, at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely crazy. But I think you sort of said that about the points deduction. I think the one problem with that was if you gave a points deduction to Man City and Manchester United, those two would be first place. So it would affect
it's not really
some.
A punishment.
Yeah, it would affect some in sort of like Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, who are trying to chase for Europe, but for some others it wouldn't. It's sort of that retrospective, if you looked at sort of how much that would be. But we'll have to wait and see about it. But I think the main thing is what have we learned from the situation? I guess it's more about the fan power. The power from the fans has overturned us. All the owners who have apologized have said about, the disrespect to the fan power. And I think it just shows that, fans, they are the key thing here. Football without fans is nothing. And fans really do own the football clubs. I know these big owners doing that, but fans really do have the power. And I think it shows that they do. But the one thing is they have so much power in this, but when it comes to key issues, I think Patrick Bamford mentioned about like racism, that it's nothing, it's not made a big deal of. But when it's something like this, it is that needs to be looked at as well. But that's another point for another day. But I think we could sort of say as fans have won this.
They have, yeah. It's shown what power fans have in clubs. And I think owners really need to, in the future, they really need to, to do this without any fans' opinion, I think is wrong in the first place. You need to ask fans about these kind of things. Because we all know that fans are what creates football clubs. What is a football club without fans? It's nothing, is it? I know clubs like to rob their fans of money. I thought it quite ironic that Leeds were put in. There was a good message that they were doing. That you need to earn it, and the fans are what the club is. But they you got to pay £40 to go away to Ellen Road. So a little bit ironic that they said that, but yeah, I think this really showed the power of the fans. The protest at Chelsea 2 days ago now, wasn't it? That was massive. To see Petr Cech out there pleading with them to stop. I think he's part of that group, isn't he? That own Chelsea. I think is he one of the coaches as well? I think maybe I'm not really sure.
I think he's one of like the technical directors who sorts out with the transfers and that.
Yeah. So to see him come out, that's really good to see that this has caused that. And I think owners, I think they realised what a mistake they've made and how much uproar this would have. So that's what made them leave. Fans are what make football, and the Super League will get rid of that. These people who want the Super League to go ahead, they've called us legacy fans.
Yeah.
How insulting that is. How they don't care about season ticket holders. They don't care about the 80-year-old people who have been at the club since they were 10 years old, been going to watch them for 70 years. You can't disregard that. That's what makes football. That's what English football is. And to just take that away, it was sad to see. And I think, they want fans worldwide, don't they? They want the
Glory
the
hunters.
worldwide, the glory hunters. Yeah, I like to call them the plastic fans,
Yeah.
but that's not. But yeah, I think to completely disregard that, it's very, upsetting to every English fan, I think, in the country. So, it's really good to see fans come together. And I think, rivalries went out the window, didn't they? Rivalries went out the window in this issue, and we came together and stopped it, which is really good to see.
Yes, we came together and we stopped it. Thankfully, the Super League is over, but according to the president, is not. But I think it is definitely over here. And now it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next coming weeks about these clubs. What will happen? Will they get punished? Will there be a restructuring in the power? I think there'll be more restructuring, but we'll have to wait and see. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about Ipswich Town. And oh boy, what has happened this week to them? Nothing surprised me anymore now, really.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan, as always. Now, before we move on with the rest of the show, talking about Ipswich Town in just a few seconds, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram talk_pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. And don't worry, if you missed anything from this show, don't worry. 6 p.m. at Friday, straight after the show is done, and you want to listen to us talk about the Super League. Oh God, not the Super League, not more. It's going to be on our YouTube and Mixcloud at 6 p.m. on there. So make sure you don't miss it. Now, Ipswich Town this week. We finally got there. The show's been a little bit jumbled up, but we now finally got there. We're talking about Ipswich Town. They were back in action, 2 more games, looking for a strong end to the season and end this awful run they're on, with not even winning or even scoring, just to end the run. But the goalless drought continued. A 0-0 draw against Charlton. Dan, it's not a loss at the end of the day. That's the main thing. But another goalless draw. Oh God.
Yeah, well, I think after the game you'd look at it and think that was a good point, but against the Charlton squad who are pretty good, but it's just boring again, isn't it? It's just nothing created, nothing to talk about. I think we go into these matches now, and I worry what I'm going to talk about because nothing happens. I think we had a couple shots on target in this game, which is an improvement, I guess. But overall, I think again we should have done more. I guess it was good to see Kane Vincent-Young back. I think he showed a few runs in this game. I think he was probably one of the positives. But again, it's just us being boring, isn't it? Us being no goal threat. It's just depressing to be an Ipswich fan at the moment. I think it doesn't really matter who we put out and what squad we put out. It's the same every time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I guess we better just rip off the plaster, get to Tuesday, and Tuesday was a miserable night for Ipswich Town. Another one. Suffered a 3-0 loss to Northampton Town, who are fighting to survive in this league. May I just add as well, they are fighting to survive. Dan, I think we can now say nothing can really surprise us now about Ipswich Town anymore. Another miserable night, another awful performance, and I think it's sort of said a few weeks ago that players are sort of written off, but they can't even beat teams that are now fighting for a relegation battle. They're given to the poor.
Yeah. Pathetic performance. Absolutely, it's just absolutely awful. We once said that we couldn't beat teams, in and around us, but it's complete opposite now. We can't beat anyone. But yeah, it's just. I know these teams are fighting for to stay up, but coming into this game, I know that confidence is low. I know these players, I don't think they like Paul Cook. He's trying to implement his own style and they don't like it. But, this is, especially after Stephen Ward, he came out the time before and said, we still think we can get into playoffs. We still think our team is good enough. And then you come out against Northampton and play like that. It's absolutely embarrassing. I think the players really need to take responsibility for themselves. You see, I've seen some of the highlights. McGuinness is passed absolutely no one. Absolutely awful. I think straight from the kickoff in the second half, Wolfenden passed it straight out for a throw in. You could see Paul Cook absolutely, he's absolutely fed up, isn't he? You can tell in his interviews, these players just don't care. And I think that's what frustrates people the most. They just do not care, which is embarrassing. I know you're not going to be playing for Ipswich. I've said this before. You're not going to be playing for Ipswich after this season, but your career is on the line here. Who's going to want to sign you if you're playing like this? Both Northampton got the first two Northampton goals complete the same from a corner, free header into the net, absolutely identical. I thought I was watching a replay when I saw it. And then the third goal, what is Holy doing? Seriously, it comes out. The clearance is the weakest clearance I've ever seen, just to tap in for the Northampton player. The complete lack of quality, it's just unbelievable. At the start of the year, we were able to claw out wins. I know we weren't really playing well, but we had that little bit of quality to get us over the line. But we're showing absolutely nothing. And I can't wait till the end of the season now. 4 games. I said on Twitter, 4 games to go until these pathetic excuses of a squad are gone, because it's getting too much now. It's getting ridiculous now, and I'm fuming and I'm fed up.
Well, on Saturday, it felt like, I know it sounds bad, it felt like on Saturday, that draw, Ipswich were taking small baby steps. Things were slowly going in the right direction, ever so slightly. But, they took 2 massive steps back against Northampton. And I think it's a shambles, really, when they can't do the basics right. That was the main thing. They couldn't do anything right. You said about McGuinness's pass. What was that? It's like, huh? What's going on there? There's no communication whatsoever between him and the midfield, and Wolverton's pass, and then that mistake at the back by Holy. It's just nothing's going right. But it is an absolute shambles, really, at the moment. It's no other way to describe it, unfortunately.
No, it is an absolute shambles. And you're right. I think in the Charlton game, we played a bit better than we usually do. I think that's what Paul Cook said. But you need to back that up. But you think that going away to Northampton, a team that concede so many goals, they've been poor this season. You'd think that would be able to get a result there, but yeah, it's an absolute shambles. You're right. I think Paul Cook, people are questioning him. I understand why people are questioning him, because we're not getting results, are we? But I think it's a bit too soon to be doing that. I think it's stupid that if you blame Paul Cook. It's. I saw someone tweet a good point. You've got to choose between Paul Cook and the players. The first one, came in with this squad, inherited this squad who have been performing poorly for 3 years. You can blame him for that, or you've got the players who have been bottling it since the relegation season. Should have gone up last year. We should have at least got in the playoffs last year. Absolutely bottled it towards the end of the season. Exactly the same as this season. I don't think you can blame Paul Cook for this. I'll give him a transfer window, and if we're not, at least in the playoffs by Christmas, then maybe I'll start to change my mind. But I still believe he's the right man for the job. With these new owners, massive changes in the summer, because I'm fed up with this squad now. I'm fed up with the absolute lack of quality and lack of caring that they're showing. And I think it proves with Paul Cook trying to do 2 training sessions. They can only make it through 1. I think the fitness levels have been affected. I don't know why. We just look unfit as a team, don't we? We look unfit. We don't look like we can play 90 minutes of football, which could be down to the manager, I guess. But I think it's too early to blame him, and can't wait to the end of the season now.
Yeah, you can't sort of blame him, new styles. He's trying to invent his own style, and it's not unfortunately working. And I think he has thrown the kitchen sink many times at this squad. But something that is concerning is this goal drought is now past the 9 hours, and it's still counting. I don't know the exact terms, but I know it's more than 9 hours. In simple terms, Ipswich cannot score. I think it's 36 league games, 28 goals. Soon they're going to be the lowest goal scorers in the league. But I think if I remember correctly, I think all of its strikers this season have scored 10, and Will Keane, who left, has now scored 9. So Will Keane's the one that got away, I think we could say now.
Absolutely embarrassing. It's just pathetic that we can't score. You think Norwood, I know he's getting injured and it's unfortunate, and people are getting annoyed with him, but you can't really help it if you keep getting injured. And then the other three, Jackson had a good season last year, but he's not the type of striker that will score by himself. Hawkins and Drennan are just... Hawkins isn't a goal scorer, and Drennan shouldn't be at this level, I don't think. So I think striker's probably the priority in the summer. We need a goal scorer desperately. Because it's just getting absolutely ridiculous now. And I think Paul Cook's trying absolutely everything, isn't he? He's trying so many systems, so many players. But, he started Sears in this game. What has he done this season? He's been one of the, a massive disappointment this year. Are we going to get anything, attacking wise with him on the pitch? Probably not. It's just getting ridiculous now that we can't score. I said to you yesterday, we need the arrows pointing towards the goal, like they did somewhere in Germany. But yeah, if we don't score another goal until the end of the season, then what an awful end to the season that'll be, won't it? I think we've scored 7 goals since January. Pathetic.
Yes, abysmal. Well, before we get on to Paul Cook's comments after the game, I just want to get your quick thoughts on Alan Judge, who's become the first Ipswich player to confirm that he's leaving at the end of the season, after Paul Cook told him that he would not be considered for the first team for the rest of the season due to a clause in his contract. So basically, if he played one more game, he would be staying at Ipswich Town for an extra season. Dan, he didn't really have a great spell at Ipswich Town. I can't remember his stats. Let me quickly get them up. I've got to open up my book for people that can't see this on radio terms. I'm unprepared for once. I'm unprepared, and I haven't got the stats up. Here we go. So it's 91 appearances, 8 goals, 11 assists in 6 in that time. But really, would it be a career remembered for so much promise at the beginning, but it never lived up to the hype that we expected?
No, it didn't, unfortunately. When we signed him, we knew how good of a player he was for Brentford before, Luke Hyam broke his leg, which was really unfortunate for him, obviously. But, we signed him and I thought he was going to be a really good signing. I think he did okay in that first season. I think, he was a decent player in that relegation season, that half. But I think confidence and age just got to him, I guess. And I'm not exactly his biggest fan. From these past few years, you probably realise that because, we all know what he can do, and sometimes he shows that. I think in games he can show what he can do if he's played in the right position. He's played on the wing a lot under Lambert, which wasn't his favoured position. When he looked good, he was usually playing as a number 10, wasn't he? So I think overall, I think it's unfortunate how his Ipswich career has gone, because I think he showed in areas that he could be a decent player. He hasn't lived up to that. I do wish him well, but I'm not going to be exactly upset with it, unfortunately. I think it's just the start of these players going. But I think this season he's probably been one of the better players. Maybe not at the start of the year, maybe in the last few months or so. A decent player out of a bad bunch, I'd say, but I still don't think that's enough to stay at the club, unfortunately. Wish him well on wherever he chooses as his next club, or whatever he does next. But hopefully this is the start of more players going.
Yes, we'll have to wait and see about that in the next few weeks. But now Paul Cook's comments after the game, his interview was very short and sweet. He wouldn't criticize the players. He said, "I'll keep that to myself," which was kind of interesting. And he said, we've all heard it before, but he said that he expected himself to be doing a lot more better in this season, which is kind of interesting about your comments earlier about, from the fans and that. But he said about hopefully we'll see some signs that the club looks like it's going to be a little bit more positive. But another new low really for the club this week. 3-0 loss to Northampton, down to 11th. They're more close to 15th now than 6th, which is now the playoffs. But 4 more games to go. It really feels like these games now really have no meaning to the fans and the players. The players really, because the awful slow performance. But Paul Cook is very persistent here that better times are coming in the summer and for next season. Like, I guess it's just more, we just got to get these 4 games out of the way. And then, as he said, he is going to be the demolition man. I guess that's when we're going to really see he's going to be putting his stamp down. And I guess a lot of these players are not going to be here next season.
No, it doesn't look like that, and he's just telling us to be patient, isn't he? And I think that's what we need to be. These last 4 games, as you said, they pretty much mean nothing now. We're not doing any. We're not fighting for playoffs. That's gone. That was probably gone a while ago. It's just pointless these last 4 games. So he just needs to be patient for the summer. I think he kind of changed tactic. I guess he changed his mood in his interview because he kind of started blaming himself, which I don't think he should really do. That kind of, his confidence is probably shot as well. But he's kind of changed from saying these players need to do more and it's not good enough to I should be doing better, which is really interesting to see. I thought he's probably trying everything to get something out of these players. So he's probably trying different tactics and different ways of speaking in the dressing room to try and get something out of it, but nothing's working. And I don't think you can blame him for that. So he knows change is coming, and he said that. So I'm going to trust in what he says. And I think if we don't win these last few games, I wonder what the owners will do. I hope they give him a chance, because there has been murmurs that he might not be here in the summer, which I think will be too soon. I think we really need to give him a chance at a squad that he likes and he's confident with, because you can just tell that he's not at all confident with the squad he's got now, and he doesn't like the players that we have. So yeah, let's hope there's a lot of change in it, and he seems to realise that there will be with these new owners.
I hope not, because I think when the new owners come in, I think they sort of have given a little bit back in on sort of the English side. But I hope they don't, because he hasn't really had chance to do anything. I think we can be perfectly honest here. But this week, Ipswich Town, they are home tomorrow, looking to end this bad run of results and this goal drought of over 9 hours. So their visitors today is, tomorrow, is AFC Wimbledon, who are currently sitting 19th in League One, 5 points above now the drop zone. 4 wins out of the last, 4 wins now out of the last 4, including the 3-0 victory over Ipswich Town 11 days ago. Oh boy. Dan, can Ipswich turn this bad form around, get some revenge on Wimbledon, or will Wimbledon just do the double over Ipswich Town in the space of 11 days, which is kind of embarrassing?
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? The last game was appalling again. They really got into us, didn't they? And they're having a good time at the moment. They're scoring a lot of goals, Wimbledon. So am I confident? No, I don't think anyone is. Does anyone really care about this game? Probably not, on the Ipswich end anyway. As I've said before in other shows, does it really matter who we put out? What squad we put out? I hope he starts to play some youngsters, because I think we've been wanting that for a few games now, but he's still playing some of the older lot. But I hope he starts to play some of the youngsters in this game. I'd like to see Dobra start and some others as well. So can I see us winning? No. I don't know if we're going to score any either. Are we going to have enough to at least score? That's all I want, just to score a goal. But but nah, I can't see us winning it. I think we'll be lucky to get a draw in this game because Wimbledon are scoring the whole time. But I think I will, as it's at home at Portman Road, I'm going to go for a draw and I'm going to go for a ball draw. I think I'm going to go for 0-0.
Well, Dan's going for another goalless draw tomorrow for Ipswich Town versus AFC Wimbledon. Let us know what you think. Let us know on our Twitter what your score prediction is for tomorrow's game between Ipswich and AFC Wimbledon. And when we come back, we're going to have a little quick chat about Jose Mourinho and Spurs.
The best place in Ipswich to hear the latest football debates, Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan, as always. Now, before I move on and we talk about Jose Mourinho and Spurs, I better mention the social media, Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk on Score Pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. If you want us back to any of our previous shows, even this one, don't worry if you missed anything us talking about Ipswich Town and the Super League. Boo hiss. I'll be up at 6 p.m. on Friday straight after the show. Well, why are we talking about Jose Mourinho and Spurs? Well, big news came out on Monday morning, which wasn't the Super League. Spurs announced the sacking of their manager, Jose Mourinho, a week before the Carabao Cup final after 17 months in charge of Spurs. He is out. In that time, he guided Spurs to a sixth-place finish in his first season when he took over from Poch back in November. But this season, I think we can sort of say has been a failure by his standards. A promising start, a 6-1 victory over Manchester United, then beat Arsenal 2-0. Top of the table for a little bit of time, I want to say about a month or so. And then late December, it all went a bit pear-shaped. 7 wins out of their last 19 league games, losing 8 of them, knocked out of the FA Cup, an embarrassing exit out of the Europa League. Dan, Jose Mourinho is a serial winner here. And how did it go so wrong for him this year and his time at Spurs?
Yeah, well, when they appointed them, you'd think that, he'd do a good job because, as you said, he's a serial winner. Everywhere he's gone, he's won games. But I think I don't think it's all to do with him. I don't think it's all his fault. I think we've seen before sometimes he doesn't get along with players, and I think that happened a little bit at Tottenham, the whole Dele Alli thing. And, I guess when that happens, the team kind of gets affected with that as well. But I think the squad is probably the big thing because we all know that Tottenham don't really spend a lot, do they, in the summer? They don't really sign big players. They signed a few in the summer, but have they really made a massive impact? Not really. They've done okay, I guess, but saying that they're not far off top 4, are they? Still, so
yeah,
it's not really been a good time for him, has it? And I find that quite surprising, really, because it's Mourinho at the end of the day. He can get the most out of any squad he has, so it is really surprising. But I think the main thing is just the quality of the squad isn't up to standards with teams like Man City or Liverpool. Well, not Liverpool this season, but the squad as it is now, they're not really up to it. So yeah, I think he definitely had a disappointing time at Tottenham, and I think he wanted to have. I guess he wanted to get into the top 4 at the end of this season, but he's not going to have any say in that now, is he?
No, not at all. Well, he didn't seem very annoyed by it when he went back to his home and all the media and out there. He just seemed quite happy about it. But I think he's been in that position once before. Well, who has taken over as his sort of replacement at the time? Well, it is Ryan Mason. He's taken over as the interim head coach of Spurs until the end of the season after Mourinho sacking. I think, as you said, Dan, to me earlier on, he is now the youngest ever manager in Premier League history. I think, was he 29 years old?
Yeah.
Gosh, madness are getting younger and younger by the day. But the former Spurs player retired back in 2018 after suffering that fractured skull when he was playing at Hull. He's been working with the academy, with the under-17s, and under-19s, and under-23s. Getting some experience, and he won his first game on Wednesday against Southampton, a 2-1 victory. Dan, will he be the right man for the job in the long term if he keeps putting his performance in? But I think the main question is, on Sunday, can he lead Spurs to cup glory against Man City in the Carabao Cup final? That's going to be the real question here.
Well, that'll help him if he does, won't it? If he wants this job permanently. Personally, I don't think he's the answer long term. I think having someone there who hasn't really had any experience, he's still young. He could still play if he wanted to. So, I think that's a huge risk for them. It could work in the end, but it's a huge risk. I guess we saw it with Scott Parker. He kind of retired from football and went into management straight away, and that seemed to be going okay. But I think it's just too much of a risk for Tottenham, a team who are desperate for something, aren't they? They're desperate for at least a trophy somewhere, and they could get that under him in this final. It's obviously going to be tough against Manchester City, and if he does win that trophy, then I don't know, maybe they will consider him, and if they have a good end to the season. But for me, they need to be looking at a permanent replacement in the summer. I think he should still be involved. He obviously wants to be in the coaching side of Tottenham, and I still think he should be involved there. Maybe as an assistant manager, we'll wait and see. But I think long term probably not, but maybe he'll be a future option for Levy if things don't go well for Tottenham.
Well, then some interesting opinions there about Jose Mourinho and Spurs and Ryan Mason. What do you think to this Jose Mourinho sacking? Was it right? Was it wrong? We don't really know, but Jose's gone again, but he'll be back. He always returns in some form. I don't know where. Apparently Celtic are after him. Strange. I thought that's Paul Lambert's job.
That'd be very weird.
Well, when we come back, I think we're just going to have a little bit of time for a football roundup.
Pitchside Talk, footy debate from the Premier League Outback.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on iRadio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan, as always. Now, we're going to quickly get onto this because we've got a little bit of time for football roundup before the referee blows his whistle for full time. And I've got some big news for you. We now know who's going to be in the FA Cup final. Yes, we had the FA Cup this week. It feels like, how mad it's been this week. The FA Cup has actually happened. On Saturday, Chelsea, they ended Man City's quadruple hopes and beat them 1-0, if I'm correct, from Ziyech. And then Leicester, they created some history themselves. They got to their first final since 1969 after Kelechi Iheanacho's goal against Southampton was the difference. So now it's a Chelsea versus Leicester final. And the concerning stat is heading into this final is all the times that these two sides have met in the FA Cup, Chelsea have won all the games bar one, which was a draw, which went to the decider, and Chelsea still won that. So, not looking too good for a final, but maybe Leicester might change their fortunes around. We'll never know. We'll have to wait and see. And, well, that is everything for Football Roundup this week, unfortunately. Short and sweet. Dan, I want to thank you very much for being on the show today. I'll see you next week as always, always be on the show next week, talking about Ipswich Town's miseries, unfortunately.
Yes, I'll be back talking about Ipswich again. So probably just the repeat of this week as well.
Yeah, I'll get the copy and paste in the way. Yeah. That sounds that cool. We'll put it on autopilot. If you want to follow us on our social medias, Twitter is at Pitchside Talk, Instagram is talk_bitch, YouTube and Mixcloud is both at Pitchside Talk. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to see some more additional content we do. We're doing a new series called Fan Talk, which is quite interesting. I would highly recommend you watching it. And also, if you missed anything from today's show, don't worry. It's going to be up in a few minutes, 6 p.m. so Fridays on the YouTube and Mixcloud if you missed us talk about Super League, Ipswich Town and Jose Mourinho and Spurs. Well, I've been George. He's been Dan, and we'll see you next week. And ciao.
So.
The whistle has been blown for full time. Tune in next week for another jam-packed show.